Traditional authority in Ghana is a rich and enduring cultural heritage. The resilience and dynamism in this kind of leadership in Ghana can be seen in the increase in involvement of traditional leaders in national policy processes in general and land policy decisions in particular. Thus, in addition to their role as custodians of land, as stipulated in the Constitution and laws of Ghana, and their duty as managers of community development, make traditional leaders important stakeholders in Ghana's development. Records indicate that approximately 78% of the total lands in Ghana are administered and managed by various traditional authorities in accordance with the customary laws and practices of their various traditional areas. Unfortunately, while the customs and traditions of most traditional areas recognize having both male and female traditional leaders as the full complement of what constitutes traditional authority, the role of the female traditional leaders is in most cases limited. While female traditional leaders play a role in community governance, their role in customary land governance, in terms of land acquisition and disposal, decision-making on lands and natural resources, benefits sharing from landed resources, and the overall recognition as partners in the exercise of the custodianship role is cut out. This is in spite of the fact that Article 277 of the 1992 Constitution of Ghana defines the chief to include both selected and installed chiefs and queen mothers. Noting that a continuous exclusion of female traditional leaders in land governance and policy processes cuts off an important voice in the development processes in general and in decision-making on lands and natural resource management in particular, COLANDEF has embarked on a one-year advocacy project to look into the current legal provisions on female traditional leaders and ways to strategize for the representation of the female traditional leaders in the policy processes. This is being done under a one-year project titled REPAFEL, funded by the Wellspring Philanthropic Fund.
COLANDEF is a non-governmental organization that is dedicated to strengthening land tenure security, especially for actors in the customary sector. And when we talk about the customary land sector, we are referring to those people who have various land rights that are undocumented mainly, and who are operating in small communities across the country. Most of the time, their activities are focused on farming, and in this case, smallholder farming activities. Many of the actors in that sector face a lot of challenges that threaten the security of land rights they have, and that is our target group. Of course, we also look at how what we find at the customary land sector informs policy discussions and decisions, so we link up with policy actors. But a critical aspect of all the work we do is to ensure that there is gender equality and social inclusion in whatever interventions we deliver. And that is what we are focused on currently as an organization. The project is called the REPAFEL. That is trying to advocate for representation and voice of women and queen mothers in particular in land governance. Customary land governance in Ghana. And this project is a one-year project, and it is focused mainly on strengthening the institutional capacity of queen mothers to be part of land decisions in Ghana. And this project is born out of what we have experienced over the years in Ghana, that we know that traditional leaders play a significant role in land governance. So whether it is at the customary level or at the national policy level, there is no policy decision that does not include the voice of traditional leaders. And therefore, we have a platform which we call the National House of Chiefs, which is actually recognized under the Constitution, which is the main platform for engagement with traditional leaders. Unfortunately, our queen mothers are not part of that platform, and that is at the national level. If you come to the regional level, it's the same. We have the regional houses of chiefs. Queen mothers are not part. We have the traditional councils. Queen mothers are significantly not part of that platform either. So what it means is that even though in Ghana, based in culture or in law, we have traditional authority made up of both chiefs and queen mothers, when it comes to critical decision making, especially on land and natural resources, we have only the chiefs playing a role and queen mothers not having a role to play. That is important. That is significant. It requires attention because we know that the issues of women's land rights is not just an issue we can just ignore. And therefore, we are working on this project to understand why the situation is like that and see what we can do to help build the institutional capacity of Queen mothers.
And Sassing in I or Henedia. Send your men better men and animal. Sassing in an or Hene vessel. Or him, my dear, Yadia Cobabu can be an oofy. Now, Hene Coba or Becatcher. So, Hena or no yet come at the ya or Becatcher and Yao. Sabi, when you want to tell me, dear, or back own fee on Canchero. The entire show Hen and Sana say, or Monim say, and my emre at Sana, and what I can't mem. I can't, say, or Henry, ye did, ye better yen, ye say, or Henne, Nassasa one, or Henne, Assassa one. It is awesome now, or my can't one. Sabi, a deep, yen and member, and you know, one more team with them. Internet, and Yadias one was said, and I saw him no aunt, say. And I am higher, or he might be our baby and assassin. And Yadia said, what the
at the regional level, at the national level, they are not being even allowed to attend regional council meetings. That's for some years now. You can see that there have been some changes.
If you brought a year, because you will buy a now. A young woman, near him for near my one man, a dinkitahu. Into a mahimano, echo ye cheek. And no nanny. I'm saying young Susan so be brave, why him also. I say you need to me, so nanke you to me, pa.
Land administration in the customary or traditional sector has been handled mainly by men. Say men, I'm referring to the chiefs and the elders. And if you look at any chief and his council or his elders, they are predominantly male, and that has been the situation. Now, Queen mothers play roles in the traditional setup, but not within the land administration sector.
The Queen mothers are not involved in any decision making concerning land in my traditional area because the Queen mothers, we the Queen mothers are not involved. We are not called, we are not informed. We only hear of it when there's a problem or when there's a litigation. That is where we Queen mothers get to know of that they've sold this land and there's a bit of problem. At the clan level, the Queen mothers, we don't have representatives. When it comes to land policy or any decision concerning land, we are not involved. The Queen mothers are not involved. I would say it is from the setup. From the beginning, there were no Queen mothers, so it was only the chiefs that was taking those decisions. When it got to a time that we were installed, they still have that mind, that mindset that we, the Queen mothers, we are supposed to stay at home. We are to advise them, we are not to make decisions with them.
The land has become a valuable asset now. If you are precluded from being part of those who give out the land, of course, you will be losing out. So I think some of them complain about not being part of the whole process of giving land out, which means that they are not actively involved in granting lands where lands are held for the stool. And sometimes they complain about proceeds or revenues that are derived from the grant of land. So they don't seem to be part of those who are granting the land. And when lands are granted, sold in courts, it's for valuable consideration. And if they are not part of it, sometimes they don't benefit from it as they expect.
This project, first of all, did a review of the legal provisions we have in the country. What does the legislation say? Is it that the legislation we have in Ghana today specifically allows only chiefs to be members of the decision-making platform, or that it is supposed to be both chiefs and queen mothers, but our practices is what have taken away the queen mothers? And it was interesting to find out that indeed, based on all the legislation we have, including the constitution we have in Ghana, there is no provision in any of them that really takes away or takes out the Queen Mothers from any of these decision-making spaces. The Constitution recognizes both chiefs and Queen Mothers, and in fact, the definition of chiefs in the Constitution refers to both chiefs and Queen Mothers. And in the same way, other legislation follows from that. However, the identification, the identity of who is a chief in practice refers to just the men and not the Queen Mothers, and therefore it has resulted in a situation that whereas the law does not exclude Queen Mothers, in practice the conceptualization of who a chief is has excluded the Queen Mothers from the decision-making spaces. That is what we have as far as our legislation is concerned. What should we do? So in the assessment we did, 3 key areas were identified. One was the fact that if this is what we have now, let's try and build capacity for the Queen Mothers to also have their own institutional setup as a platform for engagement, for decision making for boys.
I would say a very big thank you to COLANDEF for what they are doing for us. They are really enlightening us. They are building us. They are giving us capacity building. And with the Queen Mothers as well, it is high time for us to start making research. We should read. We should go to school. We should enhance ourselves, because we are all saying that we the Queen Mothers want to be involved.
The other aspect is to also advocate and ensure that those who are in decision making would allow Queen Mothers to be part. So, for example, the National House of Chiefs has no representation of Queen Mothers. Advocate to get them to have Queen Mothers to be part.
We are not saying we want to compete with the chiefs. We just want to work with them hand in hand so there will be peace and harmony.
When it comes to governance, I think that it would be very effective if we had all of them on board and Queen Mothers being assigned certain specific roles. Because if you put them all together, what you are doing is that they are going to discuss issues amongst themselves. And then the men, the chiefs, will also be discussing issues among themselves. And that doesn't help with progress. I think that we should have a platform where all of them will be able to come together and share ideas, and in order to improve the traditional setup.
And sakra pesi ye hune se sa asasemi aye ka ho asemi ye memba no ebi wo hokra na oye oba ebi wo ho a oye wofa ana wonana sa sakra pesi ye hune se so mo dwene nsasesem ho a ye besere ye memba no se o momfa ye nka ho na ye nsoso ye hu ne ye koso se ye nim bibia e fa nsase ho so wanko worship bi am ya nchiro bibi mu a wonim.
If a law allows Queen Mothers to be part of the house, I don't think that anybody can actively prevent them from participating, unless there's no law to support that. If there will be an interpretation to include Queen Mothers in the House of Chiefs, that is what they should pursue and go in there and make their mark.
Call regional meetings, and I'm too. I'm for say. No, my young kind. If you say I am for no one, especially I can't remember, I am for no, I am an addition. No wine for no. To one his own mamma, no me, one to see me, and one young man, ye. Intino say it to me, yes, I want you born by my. But I will call dear. And Obequaja, chieftaincy asked to me, Giddy said, one say, Chief, no, stand for or he knew him. This or he knew him, dear. Necessary, a bomb, dear, say, yes, you be your dear, you be a man who say, yeah, the benefits we're going to get, to me, one, there wouldn't be so much litigations, there wouldn't be so much war. Land guards will not invade our territories again. So when we are involved, I think there are certain things that will not go on. There will be peace and there will be harmony.
A chieftaincy is an institution on its own. So even at the National House of Chiefs level, when there is maybe a dialogue or there is a campaign for women to be involved, and discussions go on at various levels, at the parliamentary level or at whatever level or at cabinet level. When these institutions are influenced, they will bring a document for an approval in Parliament so that it will become law. For women to also be part of the national and even the regional councils levels.
The third option is actually pursue the case in the courts to ensure that the courts recognizes what the Constitution and other legal provisions say, to compel the different agencies to include women, so that we have the courts instructing all these platforms where chiefs are supposed to be represented, which is supposed to be chiefs and queen mothers, to compel them to do it. 3 aspects. As an organization, we've been working with queen mothers over the past 15 years that we've been in this sector. And we know that if you look at the context in which queen mothers operate, they haven't had so much exposure at the national policy level. Many of them are very active at the local level. Many of them are very instrumental in bringing about certain development in their local community. But they work within a patriarchal system which recognizes much more the male leadership rather than the female leadership. So even though they have the intrinsic expertise to deliver, there are certain restrictions within the environment they operate. For example, a queen mother will need to have approval from her chief to be able to travel for a program. Even though in many cases this approval is not denied, but it places a certain restriction, because the queen mother will now have to find out convincing words to seek permission, whereas it's not the case for a chief. So if a chief sees something to be relevant, he takes the initiative and he does it. Because of this experience, it has made queen mothers a bit laid back in many cases. And so many people have responded to this laid back situation as queen mothers not being serious. But if you engage with them directly and you give them the space to express themselves, you realize that they have huge capacity that when we tap, it will help in strengthening our own development processes, it will enrich decision making, and it will potentially impact positively on the outcomes of every development initiative we undertake. And therefore, we think that yes, the current status of queen mothers is not in the best of shapes, the way we want them to be actively engaged in policy. But it's possible to develop them so that they get there. And it is like this because of how they have been all these years. And that is also to say that we have a lot of individual queen mothers who in themselves have done a lot. They have been well educated. They have been part of the process through their own initiatives. And those ones we also want to notice and bring them as role models for other queen mothers to be able to engender that kind of, unity amongst them, to be able to forge ahead as one group towards the empowerment of queen mothers in Ghana.
In the short term and based on the legal review, the project will deliver a roadmap that will provide strategies for the inclusion of female traditional leaders in policy processes and policy decisions. It is our hope that a roadmap will have inputs from all stakeholders, be endorsed by all actors who play a role in the policy process, and provide the basis for a united effort by CSOs, policy sector agencies, male and female traditional leaders, and all other policy actors to ensure the inclusion of female traditional leaders in national policy processes.